Okay, our speaker today is Susan Gerbic. She'll be presenting the Fun and Follies of the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project. She'll give an overview as well as a few key examples of her recent work. She's anxious to answer your questions, and you should leave this lecture knowing a lot more about the 10th most popular website and how important its use is in educating the world. Susan?
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
My fun. Got a bit of a cold, so hopefully I can get through this without sneezing and blowing my nose too much, but I brought my own Kleenex. Okay. So, my name is Susan Gerbic. I am from Salinas. So, thank you so much for coming out here on this wet first rain of the season, pretty much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be talking to you today about skeptic activism. I am a skeptical activist. I've been doing this for many years, and it is quite rewarding, and hopefully I'll be able to tell you a story today that you'll be able to go home and say, wow, that's cool. So this is the group that I run. It's called the Guerrilla Skeptics. We also call ourselves Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia, or GSOW, or GSO. We have really playing off of the idea of guerrillas and undercover, and you know, it's more humorous than being scary or anything of that sort. But this is we tend to combat pseudoscience, alternative medicine, and quite a bit of other fringe things, and we use Wikipedia as our source of trying to improve things. So what we do is we are a group of editors. There's about 70 of us right now, and they are located all over the world, and we do this in many different languages besides English, because obviously it is educating the world and trying to make the world more scientifically literate is a much bigger task than trying to just do it in English. So we have been writing pages, improving pages, adding photographs for almost 5 years now. One of our biggest projects within the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project is called We Got Your Wiki Back. And I'm going to be talking a lot about the We Got Your Wiki Back project today, because it's relevant to the story I'm going to tell you. What we're doing with the Wiki Back project is we're trying to improve the Wikipedia pages of the people who are out there on the front lines who are actually doing the work. The people who are writing the books, who are doing the lectures or the debates, or the people who are fighting and getting a lot of flack for maybe they're supporting vaccinations, or they're supporting GMOs, or they're supporting climate change and trying to get the information out there. They are taking a lot of heat on social media. They're being challenged and academically maybe even losing their jobs. There's bloggers, obviously, you're probably aware, in some of the countries like Bangladesh and things that are being hacked to death with machetes and murdered, or for speaking out for that kind of thing. So we want to have their backs, because I'm not an academic and I'm not a scientist. So what we do in this group of 70 plus people is we're trying to make sure that those pages are in as great shape as we possibly can make them. We're not making anything up. Everything we write is factual and cited. We add a lot of photographs. We add audio if we can, because what's going on is having a great Wikipedia page makes you noteworthy. And when you're noteworthy, then you're able to go farther. What you write, what you say, what you do is something that can become more sought out by the media. Also, when people have strong Wikipedia pages, the media is trying to look for spokespeople. Whenever there's some kind of something happening in the media, they're looking to see who they can contact. Who is it that they're going to be able to find that they can reach out to that's not like, Looney Tunes or something, somebody who's competent, who has a great history of also speaking about this topic, that has credentials to do so. So by making these really great Wikipedia pages, we have their backs. And we don't only just do persons, we do communities, we do organizations, we do conferences, we do books, whatever our team wants to do, because we do all kinds of different things, UFOs and pseudoscience and medical stuff and people and atheists and humanists and who knows what. We have whatever people want to do is what we work on. TV shows, that kind of thing. So I'm going to tell you just one story today. This is cupping therapy. Now, you don't need to know what cupping therapy is. That's not relevant to what I see a lot of nodding in the audience. But you don't need to know what cupping therapy is to understand where I'm going with this story I'm going to tell you. Okay. So I don't know if you noticed, but a few months ago, there was this thing called the Olympics going on. And, oops, I'm making some weird noises. So the Olympics were happening in Brazil, and I was home, and all of a sudden I started seeing these things coming up on my social media, and there were articles by different places, and they were talking about this thing called cupping. Now, I've not really thought much about cupping in the past. I didn't really know much about it, but then I think most people didn't really know a lot about cupping either. It was just kind of, what the heck is that? And the U.S. swim team started showing up. You know, they don't have a lot of clothing on. Obviously, they're swimmers. And so you can see these giant red, perfectly circular hickeys on their arms and their backs. And the media just, you know, the word hickeys kind of makes you go, what the heck is that? So the media was like, what is this? This is terrific. What's cupping? So you can see here's the New York Times. Here is CNN. Bright red spots. What is cupping? You can see them all over his body. And then here's CBS News. And again, you can see the spots on these guys. Now, this is what's showing up on my news feed. In my mind, since I've been doing GSOW for many years, I immediately go to Wikipedia. And I'm really, really into scientific literacy and making sure that people have the best information possible whenever they're trying to find out something. We know that when people are interested in a topic, they're very likely to go to a search engine like Google, and they're going to probably end up on a Wikipedia page. That's just how it works, because it's one of the top views you're going to get. Also, we know that Wikipedia has great, how do I say it? There's no pop-ups, there's no viruses, there's no ads. You know, it's all those kinds of things that you're probably already aware with. You're familiar with it. You know that those little blue links are going to lead you to another. If you don't understand a term, you could click on that and it'll go to a next term. So I'm thinking in my mind, oh dear, what is it that people are going to find when they go to the cupping therapy page? Because I didn't know. I've never been to the page that I know of, and I was really curious. So this is all happening about a half an hour before I have to get to work. So what they're finding is this very top part of the Wikipedia page is called the lead. And that is where they write maybe 2 or 3 sentences, maybe as much as 2 paragraphs, and it sums up the whole body of the page. We also know that most people only really read the lead of an article. They're not likely to read the rest of the body of the article unless they're really interested in the whole thing. Some people do, you know, you read the whole thing, but what they were finding in the lead, and I don't expect you to read the little detail at the very top, but summing it up is they're going to see cupping therapy is an ancient form of therapy and it promotes healing. That's pretty much what anybody would see if they were reading the Wikipedia page lead. They'd go in, they'd read that, and then they'd leave. And then there was one photo, and this is this woman in getting burned. It's it's kind of a graphic photo, you know. She's got a lit flame right next to her hair and her clothing and her skin. It is kind of a good photograph to have in there. Kind of shows what this is all about. But really what they're going to find when they leave the website is that cupping is old and it works. And that's what people are going to find. And that's really hurts my heart, because that's not good information that people are going to be getting. So, enter the We Got Your Wiki Back project. This is August 7th. Again, as I said, I was about to leave for work, and I said, I can't go to work and have this page left in this kind of condition, because as it's hitting social media, that's when people are going to start looking into what cupping therapy is. Just out of curiosity or for whatever reason, the media will start looking into it as well. So because I know that we have already written Wikipedia pages or rewritten Wikipedia pages for many people in our community, the skeptic community, that are medical doctors. They blog about medicine and pseudoscience topics and all kinds of different things. I already know that there's some go-to places I can go to. I know that those Wikipedia pages are in terrific shape because we wrote them and we maintain them. So, and many of these people I actually know. So I went to Harriet Hall, and I typed in cupping therapy, and there was an article by her about cupping therapy. You know, I hadn't really read it before because I had really not had any interest in cupping therapy. And then I went through and I found David Gorski, another page that we have written, and Stephen Novella from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. We've been writing that page. We've rewritten his page and also written it in many other languages. I think he has a Russian page and a Dutch page and a Portuguese page and because of our project. And then I added a few more people that I went in. Mark Crispett, we written his page. Simon Singh from the UK. Edward Ernst, David Calhoun. These are all different people that have written about medical topics. So I was able to gather up what they had written. And again, I have about a half an hour. And I'm summarizing what they've written. And what I did is I went to the lead of the Wikipedia page. I don't have time to bother with rewriting the whole Wikipedia page, which can take days. And I left this on the lead, and I'll read it to you really quickly. All the blue areas that you see right there are where that's a hyperlink, so the person who's reading the page can click on that hyperlink and go and read more about that person or that thing. Critics of alternative medicine, such as Harriet Hall, Mark Crispett, Simon Singh, Edward Ernst, call cupping pseudoscience nonsense, a celebrity fad, gibberish, and state that there is no evidence that cupping works any better than a placebo. Pharmacologist David Calhoun writes that cupping is laughable and utterly implausible. Cite. See, 3, 4, 5. That's where all those different citations go to the articles that these people have actually written. So this is in the lead of the article. And then a little time passes, and David Gorski writes an article about cupping, and I was able to add that in really quick. He claims that it's all risk for no benefit. It has no place in modern medicine. And again, there's a citation. So I had to go to work. So that was kind of the end of that. You know, I had my little shot at doing this as well. So then I also went to my forum, which is where we have, believe it or not, the secret cabal. And that is actually what we're called. We have a secret cabal on Facebook. It's a hidden group where we all 70 of us sit and talk. And I asked them all, please go to the Wikipedia pages that you speak of another language. You know, we have a person who speaks Chinese. We have a person who does, several people who do work in Dutch or Russian. And I said, please go to the Wikipedia pages in those corresponding languages and see what you're going to see, like I did, and see if you can at least change the lead. And so people, you know, they're at work and who knows what in different time zones. And so they're fussing around to try to get to it as best they can. Now, I'm a photographer. I am actually a portrait photographer by trade, and I was until 2 weeks ago when I retired. But to me, what makes us different, the GSOW project, from a normal Wikipedia editor is that we really try to encompass many different avenues to get our message across to make sure things are in great shape. And so I'm a huge believer in photographs. I love photographs. And I think that more than the lead of what the person's going to find when they go to the Wikipedia page is I think you need really great photographs to sum it up, because people are going to jump on the page, read what they're going to read, and then they're off. Okay? So I'm about to show you a photograph, and I knew this photograph existed because I'd seen it in a lot of news media articles, and the media, they just take pictures from wherever and they just use them. They don't attribute it to a photographer. But Wikipedia is really, really strict about what goes on Wikipedia. You can't just put a photograph up. You have to be the photographer or the owner of the photograph. If there's licensing you have to fill out, it's quite a bit of work. And I'm not really great at licensing and all the rules that are around it. So I went to a video. It was a Chinese video, and I took a screenshot and I made it low resolution, and I filled out the licensing as best as I possibly could, and I decided to put it up on the Wikipedia page. for English. Now, the picture is an extreme form of what happens to cupping in the extreme. So it is quite a graphic picture, so I'm just going to put it up on the screen, and then I'll let you, so if you don't want to look at it, that's fine. It's pretty bad. And I'll take it off, and then you guys can look back if you want. So I'm going to show you this photograph right now. It's pretty bad. So this is, yeah, you see some faces here. You probably don't want to look at this. But so I took, okay, I've taken it off now. So I went and I decided I'm going to put that picture up on every Wikipedia page on cupping in every language. So I did. Now, a lot of these languages here, these are written in the word, the language. This is what their language is called. I have no idea what language a lot of these are. So I just went in and started just popping the picture on there. Now, this is all happening on August 7th, so again, there's a lot of information going on right now. People are starting to go to the Wikipedia page, and I'm just putting that picture on there, going with the licensing as best I can, and I just threw it on the page, so it's right at the very top, that nice picture, showing people visually, this is cupping, okay? Yes, it is the extreme, but there is harm, there can be harm in believing in this kind of thing. So, last thing I did, there's a medical doctor in Australia, he's from New Zealand, which I'll be going to here really soon, and his name is Brad Mackay, and somebody had written in the lead after I had written something about the Olympics, so I added what he had written, and that they're doing a great disservice to their fans that may follow the lead by calling cupping ancient but useless traditional therapy. So this lead had all kinds of information. Boy, when people left reading this page, they should really have had some great information about what cupping is. And then it was a feeding frenzy. Isn't that great? So I and all the editors that I had, we totally left the page. We just abandoned it and left it to the rest of the Wikipedia editors that are out there in the world, and there's thousands of them. And they descended on the page like a feeding frenzy, and people are editing, and they're reverting edits, and there's no real rule. Usually Wikipedia is written by consensus, and so when it gets to be a feeding frenzy like something like this, you just have to back off and walk away, because it's happening so quick and so fast that you can't make changes that are lasting, because somebody's reverted that edit and they've opened up the page and they're creating, and then it's reverted again, and it's just a nightmare. So we backed off completely. So this is what I had to do, and my other editors did as well. So time passes, a couple days pass by, and I go back to the Wikipedia page again, and things have settled down, and now they had changed it to a consensus, because you got the therapists, the cupping therapist people who are trying to kind of get something on there. It says, oh no, it's really beneficial, and blah, blah, blah. My photograph of the burn victim has been taken off, and also on all the Wikipedia pages. I didn't do the licensing correctly, no surprise, considering I didn't really know what I was doing, but it lasted maybe 20 hours, something like that. The lead stuff that I'd put on there all had been removed to the bottom into the body of the article, so nothing really got taken out, but it just got moved to the body, which is probably where it should have been. But because I only had a very limited amount of time, I just put that smack dab in the top so everybody could see it. And now the Wikipedia article, if you go to it, it's like 2 or 3 sentences long, but it's basically saying cupping therapy is pseudoscience, it does not work, and it may be harmful. So that's pretty much the gist of what people are going to see if they go to the page now. And then the same photos there, but there's another photo of another woman. She's getting her cupping done. And, you know, it's not the burn photo, but it is probably a more accurate description of what cupping looks like. And I thought, you know, that's pretty good. You know, again, people don't really read the whole article. They just want to know, does it work? What is this whole thing? So I added that on there. And now we need to know if things work. I like numbers. A lot of skeptics do. They really like numbers. So I'm going to just show you the stats of what happened whenever I did this. Again, this is just one story of many stories that we have, the things we could do. I chose this to tell you today. But let's talk about the stats. You know, did it do anything? Did it get anywhere? I mean, what about it? So with Wikipedia, we only can look at page views. How many times the page was actually viewed. That's all I can see. I can't tell if it's a unique viewer. Somebody can go there 4 or 5 times, and many people do. It could be somebody's there and gone in a couple seconds. We can't tell if they've read the entire article. We only know if they viewed the page. So here's what happened. The Wikipedia page for cupping, believe it or not, before this happened, was getting about 1,200 views a day. So 1,200 people a day would visit the cupping page, which is surprising because I'd never given it, 2 seconds of my thoughts at all. And here's what the stats look like. I don't know how well you can see that from there. I hope you can see it well. But for the day that my edits were on there, because I was editing on August 7th, and this big number is August 8th, and that means it was August 7th because of the way they resort the stats. So thank you, I get an applause. So that's 106,000 views in one day. And as you can see, it just trailed off as it kind of left the media. And now the Wikipedia page, I looked last night, and it went from 1,200 views a day normal to 1,800 views a day. So the page is still getting some attention in the media. And you can see how that spike just, trailed off. And this is typical of everything. So anytime something's in the media's eye, the Wikipedia page spikes. And then it just dissipates until the next time. Now, I didn't have the foresight to know the cupping therapy was going to be part of the Olympics. So if I had had that page done in better shape beforehand, well then, yeah, we would have had probably more spikes, not more spikes, but more, we'd reach more. So, and this is English only. So if you add in all the other languages that also saw this exact same spike, you would add about another 20,000 views. So here I am. I'm almost done with my presentation to you today, and I wanted to show you what happened to the Wikipedia pages for those people that I mentioned in the lead. And you can see also they all received a spike in views as well, just matching the cupping therapy. So some people went to the cupping therapy page and were curious enough to know about who these people were that I had on the page, and they went to their Wikipedia pages as well. These aren't huge spikes as far as numbers. These aren't thousands. Like the Harriet Hall page had, at her height, 185 views. But when you consider she was doing about 35 a day, 185 as a spike is a good number. After the fact, she's getting about 45 views a day. So she's got a little more than, about a 20% increase in her Wikipedia page views, probably because of the cupping therapy page, even though she's been moved to the body of the article. Calhoun, he was getting about 20 views a day. Now he's getting about 25 views a day. His spike was up, I think, 218 views. So, if I had this Wikipedia page in great shape in advance, then when the New York Times and CNN and ABC and so on were trying to find experts about cupping, they would have probably have found the Wikipedia page, because that's just generically what the media is going to do, and they might have found the experts that I had left on there, the Harriet Halls and the David Calhoun, Mackay and Chris Bitt and all those others, and probably, hopefully, have gone to their Wikipedia pages, found their contact information on there, and contacted them, which would have given them more media presence, which would have we'd know that the information that the media was getting would be more, accurate. Because what the media actually did is they brought in cupping people, and they did like cupping experiment things, and they'd have some newscaster laying on a table and they're getting themselves cupped, and they're like, so does it hurt? And they're like, no. And they're like, oh. And then the practitioner says, oh yes, this is thousands of years old. And that's like the skepticism they got. So it wasn't really great, it was pretty awful actually. So in conclusion, I wanted to say that when you're doing skeptical activism, and I do all kinds of activisms, my favorite are psychics. I love doing grief vampires, we call them. It is much easier with others when you're doing work. It's so much better to be able to have a group of people to do your activism with. And I have a group of people that I actually do all the training for, and we're friends with each other, and just, it's a community. And so it is much easier when you have a group of people than to do this by yourself. The We Got Your Wiki Back project is a way of being able to instantly go and find the information that you're looking for. You know that there's somebody that you can just immediately go to and and pull that information from them. So if we support these people and we support our communities, like this organization, the Humanist group here in San Jose, you're able to do more when you have a well-written, noteworthy Wikipedia page. And then be proactive, ask lots of questions. If you're going to do any kind of activism, check and see who's already done it. What are people doing with their time? Maybe it's already been done. And then lastly, just do it. Because we talk ourselves out of activism all the time because of reasons. And you want to try to go and just, make it happen. And that's all I have for you. And I'm really looking forward to the questions that you guys are going to ask me. So I believe he wants you to speak in the microphone for the video, right?
Yeah, I'll bring the microphone to you, and I'll try to get the people in the order in which they raised their hands. I didn't see the hands go up yet, so I'll start out here.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, this is quite a coincidence. 2 days ago, I watched a vampire movie by Roman Polanski, and they started out with cupping.
Oh, really?
Yes. This is just before, he was married, and Sharon Tate was alive, so she was in this movie also. And I see how it's made. They just take a little torch and this spherical cup and put the heat in it, and they immediately put it on the back, and because the hot air cools down, it draws a vacuum. And strange coincidence, I saw cupping 2 nights ago.
And you're going to probably see it all the time now because I've mentioned it. You're going to go, oh, man.
And,
you're going to see.
And they connected it up with a vampire.
Well, that makes sense. Hickeys, vampires, that kind of makes sense. And, it's cupping is actually, I bet you if I look back on these stats, I bet you there was some spikes with the cupping therapy page maybe a year ago, months ago, because it's a Hollywood thing. Yeah. And you'll see celebrities showing up at the award ceremonies with these big red hickeys on their back. And
yeah, it was a 1970s movie. So
it's been around. It's ancient therapy. It's been around for a long time, apparently.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in a movie. It's part of medieval medicine.
Do you know anything about the dark web, and have you ever accessed it?
The dark web? No, I don't know what that is. Is it just Wikipedia with the lights turned out, or what?
No, it's an underground website where illegal activities can be talked about.
No, I wouldn't be able to talk about that publicly on the radio, on the video. So that's one of those things that, the secret cabal really can't discuss.
Anybody else have a question?
So I had an injury that required massage. I still carry a cane to massage this spot. And I went through the list of massage forms, and because there is a class of issues that require massage, and cupping is nothing more than a simple, techno babble on top of massage. If massage helps, cupping helps. It's possible that, I found it to be a crock as well. It was like, this is a thinly disguised way to do massage.
And to get money out of you.
Yeah. Pull money for doing massage.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. Cupping therapy basically is mostly harmless, other than maybe what's going to happen is you're going to go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And once you start on that journey of lacking critical thinking on things, that you may end up in some pretty bad places. I just read an article yesterday about a man who found out he needed chemotherapy, and he immediately said no, and he went and did all kinds of alternative medicine for months, and finally he showed up back at the oncologist and said, you got to help me. And they were able to save his life, but he was in pretty bad shape. And they say that happens all the time, that people will refute medical, what we know, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah, cupping is one thing, but there are a lot of alternative medicines out there. You must get pretty busy, if every time you see something, you decide you need to write something about it. And even the ones that are allegedly harmless are often costing us a lot of money because they're covered by insurance.
Insurance covers a lot of them. And as I said, this is just one story we do. Another of my favorite pages that we rewrote is one of the things that scared me the most as a child. I don't know if it was as scary as like the Wizard of Oz was when you were growing up. That was pretty scary. But spontaneous human combustion, that freaked me out when I was a kid. The idea that you could just be walking down the street and all of a sudden burst into flames was so frightening to me. And so a few years ago, 2013, we rewrote the spontaneous human combustion page. And would you believe that gets, I don't know, something like 50,000 views a month, something like that. The people still are interested in these topics, and you never know what people are going to find interesting, and you never know when the media is going to hit, and all of a sudden the attention is going to be, maybe there'll be a new movie out and it'll mention spontaneous human combustion, and the next thing you know, people are going to go like a feeding frenzy to go find out about it, and they're going to find it from Wikipedia, and they're going to go, oh, okay, darn, kind of thought it was real.
Spontaneous combustion, it looks good in the movies.
Yeah, it looks great in the movies.
How does one get a Wikipedia page?
Okay, that's a great question. To get a Wikipedia page, you have to have somebody obviously who has some interest in writing your Wikipedia page. You can't do it yourself. It has to be done by an editor, somebody who. Anybody could write Wikipedia. Anybody can edit. You don't even have to have an account. And that's the beauty of Wikipedia, and it's also the bane of Wikipedia, is that anybody can edit Wikipedia. But you have to have you have to be noteworthy. And that just sounds really bad, but what it is it means that there has to be secondary sources about you. You have to have your peers have to have written about you, and those peers need to also be noteworthy. And it also is very helpful to have criticism from noteworthy people. And I have a Wikipedia page, and that's how I was able to get a Wikipedia page, is that I'm hated throughout the pseudoscience world. I don't know if you guys know who Deepak Chopra is, Rupert Sheldrake, the Brzezinski Clinic, that's a cancer quack in Texas. Is killing people with his anti-neoplastines. Natural News, they've been blogging and writing about me for the last year or so, and how horrible I am trying to change Wikipedia. And so I'm one of the most hated people in the community. But because they're writing about me and saying things about me, they're noteworthy. So it made them. It makes it so I'm possible to have a Wikipedia page because of that. So to get a Wikipedia page, it can be a curse and a blessing, because of course now anything I do in the future could be put on a Wikipedia page if it's considered noteworthy. Noteworthy also, you have to have secondary sources. So it's not an interview I do. It would be something that somebody has done about us. So as we were talking about this group, the Humanist group here in San Jose, the New York Times did an article on your group not so long ago, and that would be something that would be one citation we could use to write a Wikipedia page about the group. We need to have more of those, but it needs to be a noteworthy secondary source that's going to make Wikipedia make it. Otherwise, everybody would have a Wikipedia page, and then it would mean nothing.
It does mean nothing.
Can you kind of describe who's in the Guerrilla Skeptics? You've talked about editors and doctors. Are there more, like physicists or chemists or whatever?
Right, that's a great question. The people who work for me have are just people like you. They have been heard one of my lectures. I do a lot of podcasting. There's been many articles written about the GSOW. I'm quite out there in the skeptic community. I don't need to be on Oprah or Dr. Phil or anything like that. I'm going to leave that to the people we write about, the We Got Your Wiki Back people. Let them go onto those shows. I need to just be able to give my information to communities like yours. I'll be speaking in Vegas in a couple weeks to SciCon, and I'll be the New Zealand skeptics are flying me out there, and I'll be talking to that community. The people who edit for me are, like I say, just average people. Some of them are retired. Some of them are people getting their PhD. Some are young mothers. Some are unemployed. We're looking more for a personality type than a person with expertise, because I don't, as I said, I'm not an academic. I don't have a science degree, but because, okay, this is a good example. If I'm writing a Wikipedia page for a book, I don't have to read that book, because I'm not writing a Wikipedia page about the book. That would be using a primary source. So what I have to do is I would read the reviews written about the book. And those people who are reviewing the book should be noteworthy also. So from the reviews, that is where I'm actually making the Wikipedia page. Because otherwise, it's just a review I'm writing. So you don't have to have expertise in any area whatsoever. You just have to be organized. You have to be self-motivated. You have to work good in groups. You have to be able to handle criticism, constructive criticism. So I have people who have PhDs, and I have people who have, maybe a high school diploma, and they just need to be able to use the internet. I have huge levels of different people. I have one editor who's working on his PhD. He's 20 years in his 20s in the University of Suez in Egypt. So he just wrote a Wikipedia page, rewrote the Wikipedia page for Bob Carroll, who recently died, and I wrote an article about that. But, all different kinds of people. 20s, I think the youngest we had was somebody who started out working for us, I think he was 14. Oh, there's somebody in the back.
Hi. I really admire and applaud skepticism. Your talk is making me wonder about a couple things. One is, how do you evaluate your experts? Because so often we know that experts are just co-opted by their training, their conflicts of interest, their desire to publish, their funding by left, right, whoever. Okay, so how do you really evaluate that? And then how do you control your own attitudes and values in things? Being skeptical of yourself. And things that are making me wonder about that is, you talked about cancer therapy, okay? I've known people that worked at Sloan Kettering in the labs, and they tell me that, virtually all of these chemo people don't last very long. So that's someone's real-world view of their effectiveness and success. And again, that's anecdotal. The other thing is, when you put that picture on WikiLeaks, it was extremely dramatic, okay, as a emotional response thing, as opposed to a reasoned, evaluative thing. And then I have some faith that the consensus drew it back to, like, this is ancient, and it's not really effective, which to me, to borrow a phrase, is a much more fair and balanced view of the world. Like, the religious are this, and the atheists are this, and the agnostics are we don't really know.
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack. Really, okay, so if I go back to your first question, which was, how do we evaluate our experts? And also to your second question about how do we handle our own bias? And of course, we are biased because I choose to work on pages that I choose to work on. So, and they say the best written Wikipedia pages on the internet, the best written Wikipedia pages are porn sites, porn stars, and Pokemon characters. So obviously the person who's writing those Wikipedia pages are people who are very interested in porn stars and Pokemon characters. And so we choose to write the Wikipedia pages that we want to write, which is definitely has a bias. And some people say, well, how do you not have a bias? It's like, well, I don't know. I'm alive. I have to have a bias. I'm sure I don't want to work on Norwegian football players who's, left-handed football players or something. I don't know. You work on what you find interesting. And again, it is done by consensus, as you said. So when I put up a photo or I put up an article, the page is going to go, once it's live, it's free game. So anybody on Wikipedia who's also an editor can change it. If there's rules, I don't want to go into that too much because it's a little confusing, but there are certain rules that make it harder for people to revert things. You're supposed to discuss it, and we discuss them, and it comes out usually with the photo that I did put up was probably a little too biased because I was definitely trying to go for an emotional look, which kind of brings us back to the Guerrilla. In the Guerrilla Skeptics, I tend to be a little more aggressive. Our group tends to be more aggressive. We're still following all the rules of Wikipedia, but in the end, it does just kind of works out. The page ends up after a period of time. It just becomes what it should be. And that's what the cupping therapy page, if you read it now, it should be more reflective of what cupping therapy is in an unbiased, neutral kind of way. But I should say that on Wikipedia, one of the rules is there's a rule called fringe. And if you are trying to make it's not equal weight. So like the Wikipedia page for the Earth, the planet Earth, or for the moon, they're not going to have flat Earth mentioned on there. Because that's not an equal balance. In the media, they think, oh, we're going to talk about the Earth. Well, we better have a flat earther on here. That's how the media kind of works. We don't do that on Wikipedia because you have to have, the balance has to be reflective on what the consensus is in society. So, we don't put on the suicide page, some happy suicides or something like that. It just doesn't work like that. We don't have the moon hoaxes on the moon page and so on. There's a separate page just for moon hoaxes and for the Flat Earth Society and so on. So it just, fringe topics, like you can't put a Wikipedia page up for a psychic who says, oh, I've solved all these crimes and I've done all these amazing things. No. You have to have noteworthy sources saying you have solved these crimes and that you can speak to the dead.
Oh.
And how it's evaluated is just consensus.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused about the moderation, and so are you saying that any of your editors can post anything they want at any time? Is that right?
Yes and no. I could go in right now and I could change a Wikipedia page in front of your eyes and somebody somewhere might say, no, I don't think so. And then they can come in and revert it pretty easily. It just takes like a couple clicks. But every edit on Wikipedia has a history. You can see it in seconds. And so one of my editors probably wouldn't want to go in and change a Wikipedia page because it may follow them it might give them a bad reputation as being somebody who makes vandalism or something like that. We wouldn't want to do it, but for the most part, anybody can edit Wikipedia in seconds.
How can we learn more about how to write on Wikipedia? Is there an internet source that will tell us, does Wikipedia have a how to do it page?
Yes, actually, Wikipedia has quite a bit of tutorials on how to edit Wikipedia. Anybody could go and pull them up. YouTube has them. They're great. Hit or miss depending on your expertise. When I tried to learn how to edit Wikipedia by myself years ago, I'm not really a tech person, so I made a lot of mistakes. And what we specialize in is I do all the training, and I don't know all the jargon and things like that too. So I'm told I make a very good trainer because I explain it as a person who's a novice would explain it to another novice, instead of somebody who's maybe in the computer field would catch on a lot quicker. But there's a lot of nuances to it, like how to make an edit stick, what site to use, how to word it. So there's a lot that goes on, but anybody could do it on their own. You could easily pull it up in a half an hour. You could be sitting there editing Wikipedia, no problem.
Arthur Jackson here. You gave a good description of this cupping thing and sort of gave us a chance to see how Wikipedia works and that, whatever. But I didn't hear much on skeptics. My take is you do stuff, hopefully, that skeptics would be interested in knowing about and being involved in, and maybe even humanism. Do you have anything like that, or can you tell us anything useful, or is this out of the ring?
Well, we do everything. It depends on my editor's interest. We have focused on several different times. Okay, maybe this will make more sense. There's been 3 occasions that I can think of off the top of my head that we've proactively edited Wikipedia as a group. One was we spent about 6 months working on anything that had to do with vaccines. And this is after the measles outbreak in Disneyland. We went on a campaign to really focus on improving Wikipedia pages of the people who are on the front lines of getting the word out there about vaccinations, like Mark Crispet and several of people who were actually anti-vax persons. So this is another reason why I'm kind of hated, is because we've been on the front lines of making sure good information gets out there about vaccinations and supporting that. Another one we did is when Cosmos came out. Remember, Cosmos was Neil deGrasse Tyson. We knew that was going to be released in March of 2013, or was it 14? 14, right? We knew that was coming up. So what we did as a group is we went in and did everything we could possibly find on Cosmos and anything that would be of interest Cosmos-wise, so that when Cosmos was actually released in that March, the spikes for Neil deGrasse Tyson's Wikipedia page and other things were just phenomenal. I mean, just 300,000 views and so on. And so we were trying to hit the media before the media knew that this is going to be a thing. And another one we recently were working on is books. Just anything that has to do with skepticism. We wrote Wikipedia pages for a lot of the books that we probably did 15 or 20, something like that. And we do humanism, we do atheism. We've written Wikipedia pages for many different atheists, because that's of interest to some of my editors. We did a really Matt Dillahunty, Seth Andrews, Nathan Phelps, some people from history that are no longer with us from the back in the days. I just wrote one recently on an atheist in Pensacola, Florida. His name is David Suter, who's been speaking out against religious invocations that are being done in school boards and so much. And I finished that a month ago. And so that was brought a spotlight to religious, how the school boards and things like that and the city councils are allowing Christians to come in and do an invocation and prayer with the community, and then the atheists and the other non-atheists people are in the audience and they don't feel like they're part of the community because these are elected officials that are giving a Christian prayer. So I could talk for an hour on all the different kinds of things we do, but it is kind of depends on what the editor finds interesting to themselves.
I appreciate you're not letting extraordinary claims go unchallenged. What would please me more even, though, is if Wikipedia had more links to actual observations and evidence and the experimental studies, the more factual evidence that one could use to judge the battle of opinions that is usually what appears in such sources. So is there a way to do that?
Because we rely heavily on secondary sources, that's how Wikipedia completely runs. You are going to get that, but you're going to have to click on the article that the person has written or whatever, and then click on where they're getting their primary research from. So you can find all that, but it's going to be in the citations of all Wikipedia articles, and it might be 2 clicks away because you need to, again, we can't do primary. We're not quoting a primary source. We're quoting a person who has already done the research, and supposedly they're noteworthy in their field and has evaluated the information. So yes, they're there. It's just a click or 2 away.
Regarding how hard it is to change Wikipedia, a few years ago I saw a minor error on a page, and I looked all over the place to find an email address I could report the problem, and I finally decided it was probably easier to fix it myself, yes. and I did, and it really wasn't that hard. Mm-hmm. As long as it's minor. If you're going to add pages, that might be something else. Mm-hmm. But 3 or 4 times I've made minor changes, and it's not hard.
No, it's not hard. You could go in and you could fix a spelling error, a grammar error in seconds, and it really is simple. People, I have some people I train, and they're absolutely afraid they're going to blow up the internet. They're just terrified of what they're doing, so we start with small things. But yes, I totally encourage you to go in and improve Wikipedia pages just on your day. You'll see there's a little edit button up there on the top side. You don't have to be enrolled in anything. You don't have to ask for permission. There is no way of really letting anybody know except maybe on the talk page, but which is on the left-hand side of every Wikipedia page you see. It says talk. You probably have never noticed it. That's where the editors discuss the page. And yeah, please go in and make Wikipedia better. But I hear from people when I do these lectures all the time is something they've made, and they tell me they've made some change and it was reverted. It's like, well, let's look at it. So we'll sit down with the computer afterwards, and you can see what they've done is they put in something that wasn't cited. Yes, I know. I don't know if you guys know who James Randi is. He was going in and changing his Wikipedia page, and he got reverted. And he was arguing with the editor. He goes, I know when I was born, and they're like, you can't change it, Randy, because we don't know, first off, that's you. And second off, let somebody, it needs to be a secondary source. We can't, because you don't know who's changing this, who's making these changes. So you have to, so he's a friend of mine, and he wrote to me, and we made the changes without having to have him do it. But yes, anybody can edit.
Yeah, but you do have to have an account. You have to get, I think I had to make a user, I mean, not a financial account, but I needed a username.
Nope. You don't have to have a username. Really? Anybody could turn up right now, pull out your phone, hit the edit button, and you're editing. You don't have to have an account. It's better to have an account. You'll be taken more seriously. The changes you make will have more lasting, and you'll accumulate a history of your edits. But no, that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Yes?
Hi. Yeah, I don't know what the scope of Wikipedia is and how it decides what it's going to address, but I was wondering about whether it had information about like political systems. I sort of, I've grown up in the United States, but it wasn't until I moved to Europe that I actually discovered there were lots of other political systems. Mm-hmm. And I thought they were all like ours, winner take all. And now our country's stuck in this horrible bind between 2 kind of questionable candidates, to say the least. And I just wonder whether people can go to Wikipedia and find out information about other political alternatives and how well they work, if anybody did an analysis of anything like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a great question. And one of the things that you said I want to address right off is you said, how do they decide? There is no they. They is us. So it's just imagine a thousands of people in a room making the decisions. And that's how the rules are done to some extent and decided on. It's a consensus. So there is no they, unless it's us. And so it's just somebody's interested. I have one of my editors in the Netherlands. His name is Leon, one of my more prolific editors, and he's got a degree in history, and he loves writing about political systems. He's just finished writing about a lot of the political systems in the Netherlands, and he loves that. I mean, that is his thing. So he's written quite a bit about past and how it was developed, and it's out of the purview of the skeptics group, but a lot of us write about things that have absolutely nothing to do with skepticism. We write about what interests us, a movie theater in our area that might have a history, or our high school, our hometown. We do all kinds of things just to keep our hand in it, because the whole goal is to improve Wikipedia as a whole, and you need to be diverse. And so, yeah, political systems, oh my gosh, you're going to fall into a rabbit hole. You go home, try to find one, and then just click all day long, and who knows, we're going to be in Uganda by the time you're done. There's so much to learn. Yeah, it's quite, and if you want to look into porn stars or Pokemon characters, same thing. It's just there, quite a bit.
I was interested in your comment about prayer in school boards or city councils or whatever. It's an area where I've had some hands-on experience trying to get people to quit doing that. Not successfully, by the way. But it brought up the question to me as I don't see a scientific question there in the question of prayer before meetings. Whether it's constitutional or not, that's something you can argue, and you can try to establish that. I understand that. But what's the skeptic component of that? Some people like to do it, some don't.
Well, it is against the law in a lot of ways. There was a ruling that just came out. It's Greece versus I can't think of what it's called, but Greece, New York. That it's a Supreme Court ruling that just came out a few years ago that allows school boards to be able to have a prayer invocation, but there's certain restrictions. So, if I understand your question correctly, are you asking what would be our interest in that as far as skeptics? Well, I'm an atheist, so I found that just abhorrent to see. That's kind of one of those things that privately really pisses me off, that I don't like clicks. I don't like that idea of some people can join in and other people can't, and that the government should be representing all of us. So what's happening in Pensacola, Florida is definitely outside the law. The FFRF and the American Humanist Association are about to file suit with a lot of these school boards, and same with like crosses on public property, Christian crosses. By the way, they're not just crosses, they're Christian crosses on property, public property, government, our taxpayer money. So these are long efforts that the American Humanist Association and the FFRF, which is the Freedom from Religion Foundation, I think, right? Yeah. They're, they become aware of these things. They write letters to them. Then the city councils, have their thing. They say something about it, and then it goes back and forth between the lawyers could be years before these are rectified. But if you read the Wikipedia page I wrote for David Suhor, S-U-H-O-R, you'll see that it's has one after another. He ended up doing a satanic prayer. He managed to get in, and he did a whole satanic song. It's quite beautiful at one of the council meetings, and the people walked out. It was an uproar. People were holding their crosses. You'll see the videos of this. They're holding crosses, and they're screaming at him, reciting the Lord's Prayer. And I don't know how anybody could put up with it, but it was really crazy. And I think that hopefully in time these are going to be, they're going to be inclusive of everybody who should be included, and go to a moment of silence or something if you really need to, or pray before you get there.
Okay, let me ask one. Have you done anything with climate change? That's one where it's very political, all those kinds of things that you have with like in the prayer, public prayer. But there's also a very clear and most important scientific component of that really makes it more crucial, I think.
I'm glad you raised that question, because for things like climate change or anything that has to do with the science, we have nothing to do with those pages, because those pages are already really well written. They're written by people who have PhDs in the subjects, and those are really in great shape. What GSOW does is we work on the Wikipedia pages for the people who are the climate scientists. So Mark Boslow is oh gosh, he's a meteorologist now. I'm trying to think. I can't come up with the names at the moment. But we have been working on Wikipedia pages for the people who are on the front lines of climate science and GMOs. We just worked on a page for Kevin Foya, who is who's been attacked a lot by people who think that genetically modified foods is, horrible and big agriculture or whatever it is. But so we don't work on the science pages. We work on the pages of the people who are the scientists, and those are usually ignored, or if not ignored, they're in not great shape, because we want to be able to have their backs. Because again, that makes that person become in the media's eye. They're going to be more likely to be sought out by the media. They're going to have a stronger Wikipedia page, which will help them do what they're doing better.
Okay, well, let's give a hand to Susan.
Thank you all. You guys are great. Great questions.